Hurts looking the other way. Lofts it. Barkley, end zone. Makes the grab. Touchdown, Philadelphia.
The NFC East is one of the most competitive conferences in football, with heated rivalries all throughout it and some pretty solid front offices historically. This year is no different. With the defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, the rising Commanders with young star Jaden Daniels, the always competitive Dallas Cowboys, and the young and developing New York Giants. In this video, I'm going to be covering how I think each NFC team will perform this year and maybe make some picks that may surprise you. Coming in at 4th place, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I know this may surprise a few people, maybe expecting the Giants here, but I feel like since 2000s, the Cowboys have always been the same. They look really good during the regular season, they gain hype and momentum, and then lose in the wild card or divisional round. Unfortunately, I think this year could be even worse for them. The Cowboys finished with the 21st overall offense last year in 2024, which is just about average. However, their defense absolutely plummeted to the 31st best defense in the NFL, only ahead of the Browns. The Cowboys regressed terribly in 2024 and finished with a 7-10 record from their 12-5 finish 2 years ago. Now, I don't believe that Dak is really the main problem in Dallas. I think the biggest problem is Jerry Jones trying to dictate every move that the head coach and GM make. And until that gets resolved, I think the Cowboys will never go all the way. However, there is some to like on this team as well. The new wide receiver duo in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens is actually pretty damn good if Dak can stay healthy. I don't like the new revamped running back room with the inconsistent and injury-prone Javonte Williams and the just bad Miles Sanders. Their offseason wasn't too impressive either. Mostly only re-signing players or bringing in depth pieces. I like the Dante Fowler signing as he could provide some sack production on the other side of Parsons. However, he's also been pretty inconsistent in his career, so who really knows? The second fan of the Bryant Schottenheimer hire, as I believe they could have hired any of the top coaching candidates in this cycle with the amount of money they generate. All in all, I view this team as a 7-win team. I see their ceiling at maybe 9 to 10 wins and their floor at around 5 wins. I'm going to call a 7-10 finish. I could absolutely be wrong though, and I hope they do prove me wrong with a solid year in 2026, but I just think this is a below average roster at this point. Coming in at 3rd place, I'm going to place the New York Giants. Now, the Giants are coming off a really rough season with terrible quarterback play with Daniel Jones at the helm. They couldn't protect him with the really weak offensive line play, and even when they managed to protect him, he was extremely inaccurate and made some very questionable throws. Overall, they finished 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL in total offense, only in front of the Browns. Once again, the Browns. And they finished 21st of 32nd in total defense, all to equal a record of 3-14 in 2024. The 2024 season was pretty much an all-around disaster for the Giants, but I think fans should be a bit more optimistic for 2025, as they've had a pretty decent offseason in my opinion. The free agency was highlighted with 2 big pickups for their secondary in Dolphins Pro Bowl safety Javon Holland and Saints Pro Bowl corner in Paulson Adebo. Both additions should help secure a secondary that faces Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Dak Prescott a total of 6 times a year. They also went out and signed both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston for their struggling quarterback room, and then drafted Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart at pick 25. And not to mention the drafting of the best pass rusher in the 2025 class, Abdul Carter, who now rushes from one side while Brian Burns rushes from the other, and Kayvon Thibodeau as a rotational piece with Sexy Dexy Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive tackles in football, anchoring the middle. All in all, this defense has a really good chance to be something special in 2025 if the pieces fall in place and stay healthy. However, I don't have much faith in their coaching staff after last year, and Russell Wilson has proved to just be an average quarterback at this point in his career, although he's, of course, an upgrade over Daniel Jones. I think the run game with Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatboo has potential, but still has to run behind a pretty weak offensive line. Overall, I think the Giants' ceiling is honestly a solid 10-7 season with a floor of only 5 wins. With that being said, though, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of those records at a solid 7-10 season. I think this team will be much improved from last year, but still struggle in these big divisional games. At number 2 overall in the NFC East, I have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are really coming off of what some people might call a Cinderella story season. They had rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, who lit up the NFL, won Rookie of the Year, and led them all the way to the NFC Conference Championship game where they lost to the Eagles. The Commanders finished 5th overall out of 32 teams in total offense, as Daniels contributed to both the passing game and the rushing game. They then finished 18th in total defense, as Dan Quinn really brought this defense back a little bit from last year. The Commanders shocked a lot of people last year and did some really impressive things, going 12-5 with a first-year head coach and a rookie quarterback. Their offseason was rather quiet as well, only bringing in a few names such as defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, who might be a little overpaid, and cornerback Jonathan Jones. However, I think the core of this team last year was good enough to carry this team to another 11-12 win season, and I'm not overly worried about the sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels, as his scrambling ability should help mitigate that. I see the Commanders as an 11-6 team with a 13-win ceiling and a 9-win floor. And for the winner of the NFC East, I have, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles. This one I feel is a little more obvious, as the only team in this conference that I feel can compete with them this year are the Commanders. They finished with 14 wins last season and won the Super Bowl, while also beating the next best team in the conference twice, once in the regular season and once in the playoffs. They were really the best team in the entire NFL and dominated the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs dynasty in the Super Bowl. They finished 7th in total offense in the NFL and 2nd in total defense in the NFL in 2024. Their offseason was rather quiet as well, as they didn't bring in many notable names at all, but they somehow ended up with the best off-ball linebacker in the NFL draft, with Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell at pick 31 in the first round. An absolute steal. Howie Roseman has to be the best current GM in the NFL, and they have a stacked roster just as they did last year. The loss of Milton Williams is a big one, but I wouldn't stress too much about it, because I think his production can be replaced by guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. They also lost Darius Slay, but they have a young and fantastic duo of Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell. And then, of course, the Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown connection as well, and Saquon leading the run game behind the best offensive line in football. To me, it's a no-brainer that they will win this division again and make a deep playoff run, barring an upset. I see the Eagles at 13-4 with a ceiling of 15 wins and a floor of 11 wins.